Hello, I'm Sarah from Truth, Lies, Betrayal. Welcome to Horror After Dark. Turn down the lights, keep an open mind, and prepare for tonight's nightmare. Let's begin.
My grandmother warned me never to move into a house where someone died angry. At the time, I laughed. I thought she was being superstitious. Just another old family story. The kind people repeat for generations without ever knowing why. And honestly, I thought a lot of things. I thought old houses were just old houses. I thought strange noises had reasonable explanations. I thought fear came from imagination. Then the marks started appearing on my skin. Small at first, almost easy to ignore, until they began showing up every morning. In places I couldn't reach, in patterns I couldn't explain. That was the moment I stopped laughing, because whatever had been waiting inside that house had already found me. The call came on a rainy Tuesday morning. Sana Khalil was reviewing architectural plans in her Chicago office when her phone rang. At first, she almost ignored it. The number wasn't saved in her contacts, but something made her answer. The voice on the other end belonged to a lawyer from Virginia. The conversation lasted less than 5 minutes. By the time it ended, Sana found herself staring silently through the office window at the gray Chicago skyline. Her grandmother was dead. The news should have shocked her more than it did. But the truth was complicated. For most of her life, Sana and her grandmother had barely spoken. Their relationship had never been hostile, just distant, separated by years, geography, and choices neither woman fully understood. Still, hearing the words spoken aloud created an unexpected emptiness. The lawyer explained that her grandmother had left behind a property, an old house located in rural Virginia. And according to the will, the house now belonged to Sana. That evening, she sat alone in her apartment, reading through the documents. The property photographs showed a large Victorian-style home surrounded by trees. It looked old, neglected, almost forgotten. Exactly the kind of place developers usually bought and demolished. Sana wasn't interested in keeping it. She planned to inspect the property, handle the legal paperwork, and sell it as quickly as possible. Simple. At least, that was the plan. 3 days later, she was driving through the winding back roads of rural Virginia. The farther she traveled, the more isolated everything became. Small towns disappeared behind her. Cell service weakened. Road signs grew increasingly rare. Eventually, dense forests surrounded the highway on both sides. The landscape felt strangely untouched, almost frozen in time. By late afternoon, she finally reached the property. The house stood alone near the edge of a wooded area. Tall trees surrounded the land. Their branches swayed slowly in the wind. The structure itself was larger than she expected. 2 stories, dark wooden exterior, covered front porch, aging windows reflecting the fading sunlight. Nothing about it seemed threatening. Yet the moment Sana stepped out of her car, she felt something she couldn't explain. A strange sense of familiarity, as if she had been there before, which was impossible. She had never visited the property, not once. The sensation disappeared almost immediately. Still, it left an uncomfortable impression. The front door opened with surprising ease. Dust filled the air inside. The smell of old wood lingered throughout the house. Sunlight filtered through faded curtains. Furniture remained exactly where it had been left. Books sat untouched on shelves. Family photographs covered the walls. Everything looked abandoned, yet nothing looked forgotten. It felt less like a vacant house, and more like someone had simply stepped outside for a moment. Sana spent the next several hours exploring. The living room, the kitchen, the upstairs bedrooms. Every room revealed another piece of family history she barely recognized. Most of the photographs showed relatives she had never met. Others featured her grandmother decades earlier. One photograph stopped her completely. It showed her grandmother standing beside 3 women. Each appeared to belong to a different generation. Mother, daughter, granddaughter, great-granddaughter. The resemblance between them was impossible to ignore. And, for the first time, Sana noticed something strange. Every person in the photograph was female. No men, not one. The observation felt oddly important, though she couldn't explain why. As darkness approached, she decided to spend the night. Driving back wasn't practical. The nearest hotel sat nearly an hour away. Besides, she wanted one full day to evaluate the property before contacting a realtor. After unpacking a few essentials, she settled into one of the upstairs bedrooms. The room had once belonged to her grandmother. Old books lined the shelves. Religious decorations hung on the walls. A wooden dresser stood beside the window. The entire space felt preserved, almost untouched by time. For several hours, nothing unusual happened. She read emails, reviewed work messages, watched videos on her phone, normal things. Eventually, fatigue caught up with her. She turned off the lights and went to sleep. The sound woke her shortly after midnight. A soft thump. Somewhere downstairs, Sana opened her eyes. The room was completely dark. For several seconds, she listened carefully. Silence. She told herself it was probably the house settling. Old buildings made noise. Everyone knew that. A minute later, another sound echoed through the house. This time it was louder. A scraping noise. Slow. Deliberate. Coming from below. Sana sat upright. Her heartbeat quickened. Again, she listened. Nothing. The silence that followed felt even worse. Finally, curiosity overcame caution. She grabbed her phone and switched on the flashlight. The beam illuminated the hallway outside her bedroom. Everything appeared normal. She slowly walked downstairs. The old wooden staircase creaked beneath her feet. The flashlight moved across the living room. Then, the kitchen. Nothing. No intruder. No open windows. No signs of forced entry. Relieved, she turned toward the staircase, then stopped. Something near the dining room floor caught her attention. A section of wooden flooring appeared slightly raised. It wasn't obvious, just enough to stand out. Sana crouched beside it. The board looked older than the surrounding floor, almost as if someone had removed it before. For several seconds, she stared. Then curiosity took over. Using a nearby screwdriver from an old toolbox, she carefully pried the board loose. The wood lifted surprisingly easily. Beneath it sat a small, hidden compartment. Inside rested a single object, a leather-bound journal covered in dust. Wrapped in faded cloth, Sana carefully lifted it from the compartment. The cover felt fragile beneath her fingers. Ancient, important. For reasons she couldn't explain, her stomach tightened. She carried the journal back upstairs, locked the bedroom door, and placed it on the bed. The writing on the cover wasn't English. It wasn't any language she immediately recognized. The letters flowed together in elegant shapes, beautiful, yet somehow unsettling. Then memory surfaced. Urdu, her grandmother's first language. Slowly, Sana opened the journal. The first page contained a handwritten message. The ink had faded with age, but a single sentence remained readable. Even without fully understanding the language, she recognized her own name, Sana, written clearly across the page. Her breath caught. The journal was old, much older than she was. Yet somehow, her name was already inside. Outside, the wind struck the house. The windows rattled softly. And for the first time since arriving in Virginia, Sana began to wonder if inheriting the house had been a mistake. Because whoever had hidden that journal beneath the floorboards had expected her to find it. And deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something else inside the house had been waiting too. Sana barely slept that night. The journal remained on the bedside table, closed, untouched, yet somehow impossible to ignore. Every time she looked away, she found herself glancing back toward it, as if the old book demanded attention. By morning, curiosity had won. The first thing she did after waking was photograph every page. Most of the journal was written entirely in Urdu, a language Sana understood only in fragments, enough to recognize words, not enough to understand entire passages. Back in Chicago, translation would have taken days, but she wasn't in Chicago, and she couldn't shake the feeling that waiting was a mistake. So, she spent the entire morning carefully scanning pages into translation software. The results were imperfect, broken sentences, missing context, fragments of meaning, but one phrase appeared repeatedly, again, and again, and again. The binding. At first, Sana assumed it referred to a religious practice. Perhaps a family tradition, something symbolic. The more she translated, the less symbolic it seemed. The journal described a ritual, a real ritual, one performed decades earlier, a ritual involving blood relatives, women, only women. And according to the entries, the purpose wasn't protection, it was containment. By late afternoon, Sana reached the oldest section of the journal. The handwriting changed noticeably, older, less stable, as though the writer had been afraid while recording the events. One translated paragraph froze her completely. The bond cannot be broken once accepted. Accepted. The word disturbed her. Acceptance implied choice. Someone had agreed to something. Someone in her family. And whatever that agreement had been, the consequences were still active. That evening, Sana decided to take a break. Her head hurt. Hours of translation had left her exhausted. She stepped outside onto the front porch. The forest surrounding the property stood motionless beneath the fading sunlight. For several minutes, she simply sat there, listening to the wind, trying to clear her thoughts. Then she felt it, a hand, lightly brushing against her shoulder. Sana turned instantly. Nobody stood behind her. The porch was empty. The yard was empty. The road beyond the property was empty. For several seconds, she remained frozen. Then she laughed nervously. Stress, that was all. The journal, the isolation, the strange family history. Her imagination was running wild. At least, that's what she told herself. The feeling returned later that night. This time, while she was alone in the upstairs bedroom, a sensation like fingers moving across the back of her neck. Soft, deliberate, impossible to mistake. Sana spun around. Nothing. Again, nobody. Yet the feeling had been unmistakably real. Sleep became impossible. She spent hours staring at the ceiling, waiting for morning. When sunrise finally arrived, she headed to the bathroom. That's when she noticed the marks. 3 thin lines stretched across her left forearm, fresh, red, perfectly parallel. Sana stared in disbelief. She hadn't injured herself. She hadn't scratched her skin, and yet the marks were there, visible, undeniable. For several minutes, she simply stood there staring. A memory surfaced unexpectedly. Her grandmother, years ago, sitting quietly during a family gathering, rolling down her sleeve after revealing similar marks. At the time, nobody had discussed them. Now the memory felt terrifying. By midday, fear pushed Sana into action. She scheduled an emergency consultation with a psychiatrist recommended by a colleague, Dr. Emily Carter, a specialist associated with Johns Hopkins. 2 days later, Sana sat across from her, inside a quiet office. After listening carefully to everything, Dr. Carter offered a simple explanation. Stress, grief, family trauma, isolation. According to her, the combination could easily create vivid experiences, auditory hallucinations, tactile hallucinations, false pattern recognition. The explanation sounded logical, comforting even. For a few hours, Sana almost believed it. Then she returned home and found something waiting for her. The journal sat open on her desk. She was absolutely certain she had left it closed. Certain. Slowly, she approached. The pages fluttered lightly, despite the absence of any breeze. At the center of the open spread sat a single line she hadn't translated before, written in larger handwriting than everything around it, almost as if someone wanted it noticed. The translation software produced only 6 words. It begins when she returns. What? Sana felt her stomach drop because she had returned to the house, to the bloodline, to everything her family had spent generations trying to avoid. That night she heard the voice for the first time, at exactly 2:17 a.m. A soft whisper from somewhere inside the hallway. A voice she recognized instantly. Her grandmother's. Sana. She sat upright, her heart hammering. The voice came again. Leave the house. For one brief moment, hope replaced fear. Maybe it was her grandmother. Maybe somehow she was trying to help. Then the voice spoke again, and everything changed. It knows you're here. The whisper ended. The silence that followed felt worse than any sound. The next morning, Sana booked a flight to Detroit. The journal contained one final reference she couldn't ignore. A name, an Islamic scholar, someone her grandmother had visited decades earlier. If anyone understood what was happening, perhaps he would. 2 days later, she found herself sitting inside a small office, lined with old books. The scholar listened quietly as she explained everything. The journal, the marks, the voice, the house. When she finished, he remained silent for a long time, long enough to make her uncomfortable. Finally, he spoke. "Your grandmother came to me 41 years ago." Sana froze. The scholar slowly nodded. "I hoped I would never hear your family name again." A cold sensation moved through her chest. "What is it?" she asked. The old man looked genuinely afraid, not concerned, not cautious. "Afraid? I don't think it's a spirit." "What do you mean?" "I mean spirits haunt." His expression darkened. "This thing doesn't haunt." The exact words from the journal echoed inside Sana's mind. The scholar continued. "It attaches." Silence filled the room. Then he said something she would never forget. "It believes your family belongs to it." Sana felt the blood drain from her face. The scholar reached for an old notebook and opened it carefully. Inside were notes written decades earlier. Observations, warnings, names, and dates. Many dates. One date had been circled repeatedly. A future date, less than 3 weeks away. "What happens then?" Sana asked. The scholar hesitated. For the first time since meeting him, he seemed unsure whether he should answer. Finally, he looked up. "The binding completes." The room became silent. "What does that mean?" The old man slowly closed the notebook. His eyes never left hers. And when he finally answered, his voice barely rose above a whisper. "It means you're the last woman left."
Hi, it's me, Sarah. The story may be over, but some nightmares never truly end. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to join us for more terrifying stories here on Horror After Dark. And remember, sometimes the things that scare us most aren't hiding in the dark. They're already inside the house. Good night, and sleep carefully.